counsel. If I could have general counsel read us out of closed session.
Yes, thank you, Chair Wong. There were 3 items that were considered in closed session this evening, and I would refer everyone to the agenda. The first is the conference with legal counsel regarding the Tahoe Forest versus Modernizing Medicine case. There was no reportable action. Second item was approval of closed session minutes from August 26th. That was approved on a 4-0 vote. And third was medical staff credentialing under Health and Safety Code 32155. That was also approved on a 4-0 vote.
I don't know if someone has, but I hear an echo of the speaker. Okay. Are there any deletions or corrections or adjustments to our current agenda? And I did mention at the very beginning of our meeting at 4 o'clock that we are going to move 5.2 forward under the items for board discussion, and that'll come before behavioral health. Okay, at this time, we're open for any audience input, but before I let anybody speak, I want to go over a couple things. On your Zoom screen, there is an icon to raise your hand or to make some kind of gesture that you want to speak. And if you could do that, or just raise your hand, and we'll be able to recognize you. When you are called on to speak, if you could please give your name. And then you have 3 minutes in which to present the item that you want to speak upon. I do have to apologize ahead of time. I am following the 3-minute rule, so I might have to cut you off, but don't take it personal. I'm just a rule follower. And so at 3 minutes, I will let you know that your time is up. Following the Brown Act, you know that we cannot discuss anything or take action on anything that is not agendized. If you have something that you wish to present to the board on an item not on the agenda, you can always send it by email or print. You can send it to the addresses that are on your agenda for the meeting. So at that point, do I have anybody that wants to speak on an item not on the agenda? Okay, I see no hands. I hear no voices. Do we have anything in written? Martina?
We have not received a written public comment.
Okay, thank you. So we will go on to input from the Employees Association. Do we have anybody from the Employees Association that would like to speak? Once again, I see no hands, I hear no voices. And Martina, any written comments from the employees?
None from the Employee Association either.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to item 12. Our acknowledgements, our September 2021 Employee of the Month, and our Chief Human Resource Officer, Alex, will present that.
Yes, thank you. And tonight it's a special honor. We do have Stephen in the audience. Stephen Hicks was chosen as our Employee of the Month, and I'm super honored because he's one of our employees in the HR and Education departments. So I'll just read a few things that his colleagues have said about him. Stephen's been with the organization since July of 2014. I totally enjoy working with Stephen. If he says he'll do something, he does it. He goes above and beyond and really cares about his employees at Tahoe Forest. Thank you, Stephen, for all you do. He's teaching so many education classes, demonstrating all the values, creating the classes for staff to learn, and has so much knowledge about the Tahoe Forest health system. And finally, he is my go-to person with so much, and he has been exceeding his role in education with the district. Go, Stephen. So please join me in congratulating Stephen Hicks. And Stephen's on, and he may want to say a few words. Stephen?
Hi, I just want to say that, it's a really nice surprise this month. I know everyone's had a really tough, 20 months, and I'm just really grateful that I get to work with this team and for an organization that really cares for our community, and that's why I do it. It's a good feeling to come to work every day.
That's
Well,
awesome.
thank you
Yeah,
so much, Stephen. We're happy that you come to work every day and that you continue to keep our staff educated on all the important things for them to do, the quality of care that are expected of them. So thank you again. So another recognition that we have is I'm very pleased to announce that the Tahoe Forest Health System received the Best Place to Work award for a third year in a row. And Alex has our trophy, our award.
Yes, you can't really see it because maybe if I put a background behind it. No, the green screen is taking it out. Let me see if I can change it so there's no background.
So while he's doing that, I'd like to say that Tahoe Forest Health System is so proud to be awarded the third place for the 2021 Greater Reno Tahoe Best Place to Work in the extra large business category. The recognition took place at the 14th annual Greater Reno Tahoe Best Place to Work celebration presented by the Northern Nevada Human Resource Association. And it was held on Friday, August the 27th, 2021 at the Atlantis Casino Resort Spa in Reno, which I assume Alex and his group attended. Best Place to Work winners are determined entirely on the basis of employees' response to the Employees Engagement Survey that measures key areas that make up an organization's culture, includes trust and leadership, and employee engagement. And to quote Harry Weiss, our CEO, the Best Place to Work award reflects our commitment to the community we serve as we continually strive to provide high quality healthcare delivered every day. So thank you to all of our employees for the work they do, for taking the survey, for Alex and his human resource department to commit themselves to the application. And then lastly, to our administrative staff who continually provides us with an environment in which we can trust leadership and work with our employees. So thank you again. And congratulations on that award.
Thank you. And I did put a picture up of the attendees of that event behind me so that you could see it. Thank you.
I love the picture, Alex. That's awesome. It's really good.
It was fun. Good event.
Well, we'll see what happens next year, right, Alex? We'll get them.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. Item 13.1, the Medical Executive Committee meeting consent agenda. Dr. Lang. You're on mute.
Sorry. Dorothy, can you put up the consent, the item up? And I believe it's the moderate and deep sedation at Incline. And so at Tahoe Forest, we have been using moderate and deep sedation with propofol, which is a drug that allows us to put people to sleep for very brief periods of time to do painful things to them, such as cardiovert them, straighten fractures out, do things that they would not want to be awake for. At Incline, they have not had this ability. And so with Abby Young and the emergency department, they have come up with a new policy that's allowing them to do this. At Tahoe Forest, we require either 2 physicians or a physician and a respiratory therapist. At Incline, they're going to change it, and they're going to do what most hospitals in the country, certainly at Renown and other places, do, is it'll be a physician to do, a physician will need to be present, and a nurse who is trained in airway management, and more and specifically in recognition of inadequate respiration and ventilation. So,
something special. We know what
Honestly, I don't
pardon?
think this one is interesting for us.
It's about the use of propofol in an Incline village. Anesthesia.
I'm sorry, I can't see who's talking. So Dr. Lane, you have the floor.
Okay, so the difference is at Tahoe Forest, we require either 2 physicians or a physician and a respiratory therapist. At Incline now we have nurses that are trained to recognize inadequate ventilation, and the nurses are not going to intubate, but if we recognize that the patient is not ventilating adequately, the nurse will recognize this, the procedure will stop, and the physician will take over the airway and stop the procedure that he or she is doing. This is in line with what most hospitals, certainly in Reno, do and around the country, that we have nurses that are specifically trained to monitor the airway and adequately assesses the patient breathing in a manner that we find adequate. So it's, and now by training these nurses up to this, it will allow use of this drug at Incline, which is an extremely helpful medication. And I can, if you have questions on what we use it for or how it's used, we use it in the emergency department all the time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do any of the board members have any questions about the use of propofol or the policy that's being proposed?
I don't.
No. Okay. Has our audience got any questions or comments about the use of propofol using nurses along with a physician to administer and manage the airway?
And just as a slight amount of background, when I use it in the emergency department, some of our patients have heard about this. This was the drug that Michael Jackson died on. And the physician who was administering it did it, he didn't just do malpractice, he did it in a criminal intent, and his physician went to jail. Like, he didn't just make a mistake, he was giving it to Michael Jackson, and he was not being monitored. No one watched anything, and obviously there was a tragic outcome. But this drug is very safe when used appropriately. Just like many of our drugs, if they're not used appropriately, certainly there's complications to them.
Well, if I don't hear any further comments, can I have a motion to accept the Medical Executive Committee meeting consent agenda as presented?
This is Mary. I'd make the motion.
Okay.
Dale, second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mary Brown and a second by Dale Shamlin that we accept the Medical Exec Committee meeting consent agenda. Can you do a roll call vote, please?
Director McGeary,
Aye.
Director Shamblin,
Aye.
Director Brown,
Aye.
Director Wong.
Aye. So the consent agenda is approved as presented, Dr. Lane. So thank you so much for that. And I'm sure our patients who at Incline will get to use propofol for their procedures will be very happy that it was passed.
We'll be very happy. For instance, many times, if we're doing something painful, giving a patient a cardiac shock or reducing a shoulder, they wake up for it, and usually they say, like, okay, when are we going to do it? And like, we're done, you're fine, your shoulder's back in place, we're all good.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you again for that. Item 14, our consent calendar. Usually these are routine, non-controversial reports by our chiefs, as well as our financial officer, as well as our minutes. So our audience has the ability to pull anything if they have questions. Our board has that ability as well. So I want to ask, is there anybody on the board that wants to pull any item? If you pull it, then we'll put it at the end of the meeting. Does our audience want to pull any item on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing no one that wants to do that, can I have a motion to accept the consent calendar as presented?
I'll move to approve, Michael.
Can I have a second, please?
A second, Dale.
Okay, so it's been moved by Director McGarry and seconded by Director Shamlin that we accept the consent calendar as presented. Can I have the roll call vote?
Director McGeary,
Aye.
Director Shamblin,
Aye.
Director Brown,
Aye.
Director Wong.
Aye. So the consent calendar has been approved. We'll move on to item 15, and this is where we're going to just kind of adjust the sequence of presentations. And our first one will be the fiscal year 2021 annual accomplishments reports. And I'll turn that over, I think, to Harry Weiss and Judy Newland.
Good evening, everyone. This is a special meeting once a year to really reflect a little bit of a microcosm of the tremendous efforts of our team that are focused on our community all year long, to really show a microcosm of the tremendous efforts. What's especially remarkable this year is that our team continues to be involved with a huge public health effort, as well as a general healthcare effort. And all of this wouldn't be possible without a superb team, and also without a very supportive and forward-looking board of directors as well, that has helped us achieve what we did in spite of many hurdles or obstacles during the fiscal year 21, and really some amazing team accomplishments over the last 6 years. So I'll turn it over to Judy and our team to share with you.
Thank you all, Board of Directors, and Harry. I just briefly wanted to mention, even with the pandemic, we really have a lot of accomplishments to share with you. And the executive team will be here this evening again to review those fiscal year 21 accomplishments. I'd like to begin by starting really with our recognitions, and I'm going to go through those pretty rapidly. You've had those presented to you at the board meetings, but I just think it's a reflection again of all that we have accomplished this last year, even though we were managing the pandemic. So again, we had our every 3-year accreditation at Tahoe Forest Hospital and Incline, and we did pass that survey. Our emergency department received a level 4 trauma designation. At Tahoe Forest and Incline Village Hospital, again, they received for the 3rd year in a row the Guardian of Excellence Award from Breast Gamey. And again, that's for reaching and sustaining patient scores above 95% rank. Just to remind you, we actually received 99% at both those hospitals. This year, for the first year, fiscal year 21, we received the Cal Hospital Compare 2020 Opioid Care Honor Roll. And I think you have heard through the board meetings the different work we've done on opioid. And so again, this was the progress and performance promoting safe and effective opioid use and treatment of patients with opioid disorder. We've also again received the Women's Choice Award 2021. And again, those are objective criteria in quality and patient satisfaction in order to obtain that award. Tahoe Forest Hospital and Incline had a successful laboratory accreditation. And just a reminder, the surveyor was highly impressed for both critical access hospitals having the number and scope of testing that we provide in such a small organization. Tahoe Forest Hospital also passed the mammography technologist Briner imaging survey. And again, that surveyor was really positive. We had no deficiencies. And again, really spoke highly of the team and how prepared they were and how the organization of the department was. We continue to be we are acknowledged by UC Davis Rural Center of Excellence for maintaining excellence in clinical care, education, training, and clinical research. So I know that was fast, but I do want to say, so this is slide 6. Routinely, we would move on to slide 7, which is our quality, but we're going to take a little break from that. And actually, we're going to jump to slide 48 and to review our technology accomplishments. And Kyle Cattell, our Director of IT, and Crystal Betts, our Chief Financial Officer, will review approximately 10 to 15 slides on 10 slides on technology, and we will go back to quality.
So Kyle, would you like to kick this off or would you like me to?
You bet. I can kick it off. Hi, guys. My name's Kyle Cattell. I am the IT director here at Tahoe Forest. And we're going to go through a few of the things here that we've accomplished as an IT organization, and then kind of dig into what we've done from a security perspective. I think security is on everybody's mind from technology these days. And I want to make sure that this team is aware that what we've done over the past year and a little bit of insight of how we're going to push that agenda into the future for Tahoe Forest. I think we're on, yeah, let's say, okay, so I won't read these verbatim, but we'll go through them fairly quickly here. Naturally from a revenue cycle, we continue to move things forward, and I'll work with Crystal on these as we move forward on these. We onboarded the new Ability Clearinghouse, streamlining the revenue cycle to charge capture. And Crystal, if I can hand that off to you, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So as Mary and Dale are very aware, because we talk about this during our finance committee meetings, we did make a transition to a new clearinghouse, which has really helped us get our bills out the door in a clean manner, which allows us for more prompt payment. I'm just going to kind of keep moving Kyle through these things.
You got it.
Cost accounting has been huge for us. We've been able to complete the first phase using the hospital billing part of Epic. We have hospital billing and we have professional billing. So we've been able to complete the hospital billing part and continue to work through that project. We have something that we call a HAR, which is basically a patient's account. And we've been able to transition the billing for reoccurring patient accounts like physical therapy or cancer treatment. We've been able to combine those into what ends up being a 30-day bill, which is much better continuity for our patients and our billing system. So that was a good success. We've been able to move everything to our lockbox, which is our automation of the cash receipts. So we are able to automatically post a lot of payments, and we also have everything electronic of things that we might have to manually post, but we don't have paper all over the place anymore. And we've also been able to really hone in on our coding conditions, which are on our claims in the order they show up on the claim, and that makes our claims even cleaner. So that's been awesome. Revenue cycle couldn't do the projects without the support of IT as well as project management. They've also supported us as we continue to grow. We started ultrasound at Incline Village that required a build in Epic. IT supports that, the clinical side of the house supports that, and the billing side of the house supports that. So that was a good success. We've worked really hard on the 340B drug program and needed some technology to support that. And just also developed new testing and order sets for patient care. So those are all big wins. Kyle, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that.
No, I think it's been a great win. Between the informatics team and IT working closely with finance and of course the technical team, I think these are all great wins and some hurdles we've been trying to get after and continuing to improve our operational capabilities from a financial perspective in technology. So thank you. The next slide are a couple of more things that we've gone through, mainly around our Epic instance and some of the operational capabilities of the hospital. We did build two new rural health clinics out there, built them within Epic, so we have that out of the way. We delivered 2 system-wide Epic upgrades in FY 2021. I think you guys know these upgrades, these larger upgrades that they do twice a year are fairly significant. While these ones didn't have a lot of enhancements in them, there were a lot around maintenance, security, a few enhancements, but nothing I need to discuss here. They went very well. And for releases of that size and the team, both the operational team and the clinical team and the IT team to get there and work together to make sure that was successful, that was a big win. Integrated devices into the emergency department. These are kind of like workstations on wheels with cameras on them, so we kind of advanced the ball as far as our capabilities to do remote telehealth, things like that. We can have somebody working with a patient, have that device in there, work with the doctor remotely, and they're allowed to ask questions and speak with the patient, and there's a camera in there and all that going forward. We integrated devices did that. So enhanced patient portal in MyChart. So more information is now available for the patient to view in MyChart, which has been an ask of the patient for some time. And also just from a visibility perspective, something that we've been wanting to do to provide the patients, and now that's behind us. So I think there's going to be more ahead as far as Mercy is concerned and what they're going to make available in MyChart. But stand by, and we'll see what comes next out of that. Informatic workflows, these were pretty much just around streamlining the authorization process for patients, so it wasn't as complex or convoluted when they were coming on board. So the informatics team worked with the operational teams to get those done. We opened multiple outpatient clinics in support of the pandemic, and not only did we open them, we moved them 4 or 5 times too. So that was a big effort to swing these open pretty quickly, and we'll talk about more of this in the security world. But ramping up so quickly, the way Tahoe Forest was able to just turn on a dime and change to meet the needs of the pandemic were incredibly impressive. It was almost like we had this planned and we knew what we were doing, and guess what? We did a great job. So I want to thank not only IT, but the whole team for the whole organization for making that happen, because that was some good work there. Enabled integration of BioFire for rapid diagnostic testing. A lot of that was about for rapid COVID testing, and we got that out of the way. And we changed some of the provider agility as far as the oncology space, and that was mainly where our informatics team went in there and worked with the team more on smart phrases and documentation, generic commands for specific information within the tool, Epic tool, which cuts down physician time that needs to work in there, and also makes for a better patient experience there. Let me go down to this one. And ongoing optimizations of Epic. I'm not going to go too much further in there. EPCS, the electronic prescription system, that had to go in place by regulation or requirements. I think effective January 1st, class 2 drugs are going to need to be electronically prescribed, and we have the systems in place now. It's already in place in Nevada. Those rules and regulations are already in place in law. In California, they go live January 1st. We did build an ophthalmology department across from Incline Village, IVCH, which is up and running now. And we credentialed some additional informatics folks in order to strengthen our capability to support the clinical side. And that would be in the ClinDoc and the oncology space. And of course, disaster recovery. We're constantly working on our disaster recovery. We had the fires this year. There's seismic issues that can occur, things like that. Every year we try to advance that ball a little bit forward. We're still doing that, and we're moving into some pretty exciting technology now. We feel that we know that we can bring the hospital back to operations if we were to have a catastrophic failure, at least from an operational perspective. Clinical is one side, but operational, revenue recognition, all of that, we can spin that up very quickly in another location if we needed to. So as far as the cybersecurity architecture, this last year was very interesting. Naturally, cybersecurity created a new trend where people were working remotely. We had to segment off different areas for different reasons, and we were able to march into that very effectively. And our battle focus kept us aligned with the mission of the hospital, the mission of the community, and our capability to react to the pandemic as it did. Let me just blow this up a little bit so I can see it better. So we created instances where we could take an employee and move them home without almost as if they were sitting in the office. We leveraged 3 different types of technologies. We defined what type of work they were doing. They were able to go home and work as if they were in the office. Some folks even had their desk phones at home, things like that. So from an operational perspective, from a pure, can I do my job? It was exactly as if they were sitting in their desk. Naturally, the face-to-face time wasn't there, but we were able to get that done. So I think that was our biggest one there. Of course, telehealth also, we had to come up with a telehealth or telemedicine solution fairly quickly. And we did. We leveraged what we had, which was Zoom. Zoom definitely did their part on ramping up their capabilities. I know in the beginning there was some concerns with the Zoom and HIPAA and PHI and security. They stepped it up quickly and fixed things. We made the investments we needed to make with Zoom, different versioning to be HIPAA compliant. And we were able to keep a telehealth or present a telehealth solution to our providers that I think helped the hospital continue to help out the community through the pandemic. And all of this was through secure tunneling, all of that from a security perspective. So we went into everything, and everything I'm discussing now, we walked into everything with security being the number one question, or the number one hurdle to get over. And that's the security, not only of the hospital information, but of the patient information. We did adapted the security playbook. That just means we actually put together a playbook of how we react to cyber incidents, cyber threats, ransomware, things like that. So we are consistent every time. We identify an initiating condition. We identify what the potential harm can occur to the hospital, and then we identify how we're going to attack it. And we may pull in our third-party security vendors. We may do it ourselves, but we have a playbook now, so we will be consistent going forward when it does come to security type issues. A lot of the organizations kind of shifted their target from security to the pandemic. We tried to marry the two together as an opportunity. We know this isn't going to be the last time we get into a situation like this, and we want to make sure we documented this the entire way through. So as far as a force multiplier, we're now able to take a smaller team, and since we know what we're doing moving forward, we're going to be able to execute on that even more effectively in the future. Naturally, there's going to need to be some investments made, things like that. We should be good to go there. Change that one. We changed that one. I'll mention this one more time. We did keep an employee-focused solution to this. Naturally, patient care comes first, but we also had to make sure our employees were good too and able to operate and deliver, and they did. So, given those solutions I discussed earlier, we have those in place, and in the future, we have the ability to, like I say, mix and repeat this over and over and over if we need to. Almost lastly, we did create a security operations team. We never really had a true organizational team that was just focused on security. We put that together this past year, and we meet on a weekly basis. We've also made some investments in some third parties, including an SOC, which is a Security Operations Center, which looks at our perimeter 24/7 and looks for threats and all of that coming in. We also are with Fortified Security, Fortified Health Security, which are our HIPAA auditors, and they're constantly evaluating what we're putting in place. In addition to that, we're also doing pen testing now. We've implemented pen testing in our environment. That's penetration testing. So 4 times a year, we have ethical hackers try to get into our environment to see if they can get in. And if they see weaknesses or anything like that, they inform us. We patch those holes in combination with them and our other vendors, and we try to keep that our perimeter as safe as we possibly can. We did, that SecOps team does use an incident management approach, which is a philosophy in IT. And so we're using industry standards there. Almost done here. I do want to mention some numbers. And again, I mentioned the security architect. I mentioned some other members of that team, but I do want to mention some numbers where we're at right now, from what the bad guys are trying to get after right now. I'm trying to locate those for you real quick.
I think, Kyle, if I'm looking at the slide that's up right now,
Yep.
the last bullet point is quite fascinating. 4,320 malware.
That's where I'm going right now.
And the 7,644 phishing attempts and 0 success. That's awesome.
Yeah, and what I forgot to put on this is on a monthly basis. This is a monthly average that we are getting hit with on a regular basis. Most of this traffic does come out of Eastern Europe or Asia, and we have successfully. I always hate to do this. I've got to knock on wood and cross my fingers, but we have successfully thwarted a lot of this. I know we still see a lot of spam come in. We still see a lot of phishing and things like that. The team, the organization as a whole is very well trained to send that information into SecOps. We review it. We work with our third parties. We update our filters. We update everything we can in order to protect the environment. And it's tough, but it's also very satisfying. But I really wanted to focus on security because we were able to, like I keep saying, advance the ball greatly from a security perspective at Tahoe Forest, given the new threat out there and given many of our peers have been hit and pretty hard and for a fair amount of money. So we don't want to be there. We don't want to be one of those guys. And I don't want to be that guy that allows it to happen. So I'm going to do my best, and the team's going to do their best, and we'll continue to partner with the organization, and I think we'll be in a good place.
So I think, Kyle, we've got one more slide to review for technology, and I think there's some great points on the next slide. I know you and Jake and the team worked really hard to get those COVID kiosks out. I don't know if any of the board members have been to the organization as a patient, but it's pretty interesting how they operate. I just wanted to mention the signature pads as well, because our patient reg folks use those, which has really helped streamline their processes. So I definitely wanted to make sure we hit on that. And then Kyle, I didn't know if you wanted to hit on any of the 3 following points, business intelligence or extended Zoom capabilities. So jump in if you'd like.
Yeah, I'll talk to a couple of them real quickly. I did put together, or we put together, a business intelligence team. We're trying to take our informatics team, which has done primarily clinical reporting in the past, and trying to build that muscle in order to do operational reporting too. So this team here, this organization, the group on this call can make some real data-driven decisions, not only in the clinical world, but also on the operational when it comes to finance or HR, things like that. So that's still in its initial phases, and hopefully this time next year, we have something a little more robust to share with you. Other than that, I've talked about the folks that were, we moved a lot during COVID-19, and we still do it. And I think that's all I have for now, and I appreciate it.
Excuse me, could we ask questions now, or would you rather wait till the end?
You may ask them now.
Yeah, actually, to the board of directors, Kyle is only on for us for this portion of the board meeting, so I'd like to open it up to questions for him on technology.
If I could. Alice, as you know, about 2 months ago, I said it's been a long time since we had a report on cybersecurity, and you told me to sit tight, and I could see why. This is a great report. And I'm certainly pleased to hear that we're focused on this to the extent that we have. But Kyle, generally speaking, because we're a rural hospital, are we generally at greater risk because hackers' perception that perhaps we're not as sophisticated in our abilities to thwart an attack? Or are we at a lesser risk because they feel that if they did get in, we don't have the funds to pay a high amount of ransom? How does that generally fit across the nation?
Well, Director Chamberlain, you are correct. A lot of times they will target smaller institutions, one, believing that they don't have the security footprint in place to protect themselves, and two, typically they'll sit there and say, okay, these people aren't going to be insured, they're not paying attention, and they think a lot of them feel that we feel we can just fly under the radar on this. But if you've been reading or looking at the news lately, many of the healthcare clinics that have been hit are smaller ones. They have hit some larger ones, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But they have successfully ransomware, even some in some of our neighboring counties, small health departments, things like that, where they've gotten in there and to the point where one of them had to shut down. They just went out of business because they couldn't pay the ransom. So you're dead on. I think they are looking at the smaller targets. I know they're looking at us because I've seen the malware at our perimeter. I've only seen one instance of ransomware hit our perimeter. It couldn't make it through though because of our protections in place, and it was in an email. And even if it would have come in through our firewalls and through our security mechanisms incoming, once it was executed, our endpoint, our virus protection would have caught it immediately and not allowed it to execute. But they're out there and they're trying to get in. And as you know, they're changing their approach and their vectors every single day. And so that's what we're trying to stay on top of.
I'm appalled by the number of phishing and expeditions and cyber attacks. Do you benchmark what happens to us with other rural or other large hospitals? Is there a national benchmark?
The bigger companies, naturally, their numbers are higher. I can work with our fortified security folks who center themselves in healthcare and get those numbers so we can look at them down the road, so I can get a comparison where we are compared to other folks.
Yeah, I just wonder, because we're so financially successful right now, if we're at greater risk as a result of it. Right.
And granted, we are financially successful, and I have already spoken with Crystal a little bit that I will be hoping to get a little bit of that finance and invest that a little more into security. There's some more tools we need to get. We're going to get them. We just want to make sure that we can implement them right, and that we engage the right partners when we do it. We don't want to go about this, in a haphazard way.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Kyle? Because I understand he has another appointment. Thank you so much, Kyle, for that information. It's just overwhelming how much our IT department has come into play in keeping our information moving, keeping us secure. And we appreciate all the work that you guys do.
Thank you very much to you all. I love coming in here every day, and I'll chat with you guys later.
Okay.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
So we are moving back to our quality section, and Dr. Cole, our Chief Medical Officer, will present.
Hi, thanks for having me. As most of you know, my name is Dr. Shani Cole. I'm the Chief Medical Officer for the health system. I just want to tell you that this evening is really special for me as I sit with my executive team and get to really look back at what we did for the year and all that we accomplished. It's pretty amazing, especially in the middle of a pandemic. So I appreciate the board for wanting to hear what this team has and the whole organization has been able to accomplish. For our hospital consumer assessment of healthcare provider and system, or for short HCAP, we are 5-star recognized. This is basically based on 11 publicly reported measures assessing patient experience. So basically the patient experience that we have is amazing. It's 5-star. We hear it every day. Our patients love to have care within our health system, which is amazing. We do have a quality metrics that we follow every year, and we continue to show year-over-year improvement. We were at a 98.77 in fiscal year 20, and we were able to actually raise that by 0.5%, which is amazing, up to 99.28%. Next slide, Martina. As far as patient safety, that is one of our major goals and accomplishments this year. For the 4th year running, we have been participating in the Beta Heart program. You may recall Beta is our liability insurance carrier, and their Heart program stands for Healing, Empathy, Accountability, Resolution, and Trust. And what this is a program that has 5 separate domains. We have been the only hospital still to date to have been able to qualify in all 5 domains. This is truly amazing because we started this 1 year after all of our other partner hospitals within the Beta system. And that was due to our Epic implementation. And we wanted to really focus on the Epic implementation. And now we have obtained a successful validation on all 5 domains for 2 years in the running before any hospital has been able to do it even one time. So that's a huge accomplishment. This also helps to decrease our premiums by approximately 10%, which is almost $100,000, which I know Crystal loves. And it allows us to do other programming that we want to do. We also do a culture of safety survey every year. The first year that we did it was in 2018, and we had a 63% response rate. The following year, we did a big push and had a 93% response rate. And then amazingly, in the winter of 2021, during a massive pandemic, we had a 90% response rate from our employees. Super impressive. As far as patient safety, part of the programs that Beta allows us to participate in are 2 different segments, one in obstetrics and one in the emergency department. To become Tier 1 and Tier 2 certified, interestingly, it's harder to become Tier 2 certified than Tier 1, which is a little bit confusing. For participation in both Tier 1 and Tier 2, we not only need hospital operations, nursing, but we also need medical staff participation. And the obstetrics department has received Tier 1 and Tier 2 for obstetrics for the last 10 years, which really decreases the risk to the organization, increases patient safety, satisfaction, et cetera. For Tahoe Forest and for Incline Village, we participate in the same program for the emergency department. We have had 9 years in a row of meeting Tier 1 for the emergency department, and we have had 2 years in a row obtaining Tier 2, which again is a harder tier to get to, and so we were super proud of being able to do that. As I think you guys have heard in the past, we have a team called the Reliability Management Team. This is a multidisciplinary team consisted of executive team members, physician, nursing, office, clinic staff, facilities, pharmacy. It is across all aspects of our organization. And what this does is it really focuses on that high reliability thinking, and problems are brought to this team and vetted through all different channels for the most reliable solution. Besides all of the COVID response initiatives that we have done this year, we have also been working on improving stroke patient management and pulmonary emboli. And the reason is the type of care is changing for both of those realms. And so it's really important for us to keep up on all of that changing evidence-based medicine. And that was my last slide for tonight. Well, actually, I have one more later for this round.
Thank you, Dr. Cole, and we'll transition to Karen Buffon, our Chief Nursing Officer.
Hi, good evening, Board of Directors. It's my pleasure to bring these accomplishments forward for you. I'd like to start with the emergency department. As we've been talking a little bit through some of the technology, talking about some of the substance things that we're doing. We have improved our services for substance users and behavioral health patients. We implemented the telepsych services. We now have a substance use navigator, and that is a person that is assisting those patients in the emergency room that have substance use problems, and helping the crisis worker who is employed by the county to move those patients out of the emergency department and get them to an appropriate level of care. We began human trafficking screening. As you all know, that is a fairly significant problem in the United States. And we also accomplished our designation for level 4 trauma and will be moving to level 3. Our survey is this next week, Monday and Tuesday, and I'm extremely hopeful that we will be successful in that initiative. In the extended care, we had a turnover of medical directors, and we have been able to decrease our ED visits because of the rapid turnaround of having a medical director who's also a hospitalist in the hospital, which has been great for that clientele over there. In addition to decreasing the ED visits, we have below average for urinary tract infections, which was the #1 reason those residents were going to the emergency department in the first place. As you know, COVID really strongly impacted the residents in the SNF. It's been very difficult to keep the seniors active. So we added indoor exercise programs that include Tai Chi and yoga. So that's exciting for that group. Well, obviously you haven't been through the ECC because we've been quarantined, but we did begin construction to improve the resident rooms, and that should be completed close to the end of the calendar year. Maggie Link and her team were 100% successful in every single mitigation survey that they had by CDPH, and I think they've had about a dozen of them. We've been able to have support for the acute hospital during COVID by utilizing the private rooms, which necessitated us moving some of those residents out of their private rooms into a double occupancy. And also 96% of our ECC residents received the COVID vaccination. So, and what that equates to is 1 resident that is not vaccinated. In perinatal, participation with UCD and the grant projects for neonatal resuscitation practices. Also in rural facilities for the improvement in quality care to mothers and infants with opioid use disorder. They earned the California Maternal Quality Care Collaborative for early implementation and expansion of breastfeeding. Another great award by that group. They earned International Board Certified Lactation Consultant Care Award for excellence in staffing for lactation. And also the National Baby Friendly designation, which we've had for a number of years. And care coordination, I thought it would be helpful for you to be able to see the volume. So back in 2018, when we started this, we started with 94 patients, and in 2021, we have 530 is the average monthly census of care coordination, all of the programs combined. Over on the right-hand side, you will see how that's broken out. So you've got the chronic care management in the lighter blue, behavioral health intensivist, followed by the post-COVID care coordinator, which has been new this year. As you know, a lot of our COVID patients need post-discharge follow-up for a lot of the complications that they have as a result of COVID. In the yellow, we've got the transitional care management. Those are ensuring that the patients go back to their primary care physicians. Pediatrics is new, and obviously you can see it's a big chunk of what they're doing, and also orthopedics. So the billed visits for chronic care management in 2021 was 925. So a significant increase from previous. So for our community health, we focused on COVID-19 outreach for our Spanish-speaking population. I will give kudos to Dr. Cole, who was instrumental in helping us make sure that happened. We implemented the Zero Suicide Initiative within the health system. So that you're aware, we have annual review of suicide now to try to decrease the amount of suicide in our community. We have completed the community health needs assessment, and you'll be getting those results hopefully next month. Our wellness services, which you know were well attended, are now offered via Zoom for our ongoing community members. And our depression screening implementation was huge. So we have some numbers here for you so that you can see growth over the last 2 years. So the number of youths that were seen is 600, screened is 688. Screened in primary care, we went from 21 to 45, so more than double that. Huge increase on the adult side of things, going from 982 in fiscal year 19 to 6,900 in fiscal year 21. And percentage of adults screened in primary care from 10% to 46.3%. So that is, those community health numbers are Wendy Buchanan, Maria Martin, and Eileen Knudsen, who have been endless in their quest to ensure that we are developing and monitoring depression within our community. Behavioral health, I don't want to steal Eileen's thunder because she's coming up pretty quick. We did integrate behavioral health and psychiatry into the rural health clinics and into the electronic medical record. There's lots of workflow processes that go along with that, along with security for behavioral health, which is a tad bit different than it is for medical patients. We've implemented referral process for the services and educated the primary care staff and providers. We have on-site immediate interventional therapy. One of the big things in the emergency room was we now have a county crisis worker 5 days per week, which is really decreasing the length of stay of the 5150 in the emergency department. And we also added behavioral health services to Incline Village. This is something that Eileen is going to review with you in a little bit, but if you don't really understand Prime, and maybe you do, but I thought I would just review it a little bit. The funding that comes from Prime was designated to develop programs within the Medi-Cal population and the underserved. And the Prime program has been key in helping the district to build programs and services that are branched off of the initiatives of the Prime program. And it is an extremely cumbersome program as far as gathering data and being able to choose patients that are accepted by the state. And they have done an absolutely fabulous job increasing the number of patients screened from 11.8 to 46.2. huge proportion of patients who have documented follow-up, which is also key from 63 to 74. Increase in mental behavioral health services. Obviously, we didn't really have any when we started that, and gone from 0 to 4 ratio to 3 to 8. And increasing our care to our behavioral health services for patients with co-occurring disorders. So they may have a multitude of things going on, and that went from 32 to 39. And elevated patient health questionnaire, that went from 20.2 in 2019 to 39.3. All of these indicators are what really drive the dollars that come back to the organization as far as the PRIME program. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Karen. And we're going to transition to Scott Baker, Vice President of Provider Services.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I've got the pleasure of reporting on a few things that you've already heard a little bit about, but as part of our annual accomplishments, the oncology program earned 100% in 4 of the national quality metrics that we compare ourselves to. The first 2 from the National Quality Forum and the other 2 from other national quality metrics. To earn 100% in any of those categories is impressive. To do all 4 in 1 year is a testament to how strong that program is. Next slide. And then our orthopedic service line earned the Own the Bone Star Performer distinction for the 7th year in a row. This is a post-surgery fracture prevention program. In order to earn this distinction, you have to have 75% or above in 5 of the 10 metrics. It's the highest distinction for this program. So ongoing distinction that the orthopedic program continues to perform in.
Thank you, Scott. On to our service foundation, and just a few accomplishments again. Creating the perfect care experience, we want to make sure we have a high HCAP score. And for Rate This Hospital 9 or 10, we remained in the 99th cent rank in the nation, and recommend this hospital again in the 99% rank for the whole fiscal year. For our overall patient satisfaction score, we were at 94.45. Previously, our goal was 93.7. And just a reminder, that is a combination of 7 surveys. Our inpatient, our Tahoe Forest Hospital Emergency Department, Incline Emergency Department, ambulatory surgery, our outpatient services, X-ray lab, our multi-specialty clinics, and our cancer center. We continue to celebrate our 7th year with our Patient and Family Advisory Council, who was very valuable, especially during the pandemic, to sharing recommendations to us to improve the services we provide to our community. And lastly, for the first time this year, we initiated the Provider Transparency Solution, which is on our Tahoe Forest Hospital website, and the community can see the provider star ratings based on, and comments from our patients based on our response from our Press Ganey satisfaction. On to our People Foundation, and I'm going to transition this over to Alex, our Chief of Human Resources.
Thank you. Yes. So, you know, it's funny, I'm listening to this, and it's remarkable how fast we're going through some of these major accomplishments. And, you know, it's remarkable how fast we're going through it. Normally we would spend a lot more time celebrating many of these accomplishments. So I appreciate that. You know, we've done so much in human resources and education. It's been remarkable how much we've completed, but we've grown to about 1,074 employees. This does not include the many contractors that really are a vital part of our team. We've onboarded over 298 employees this past year, and we finalized and began implementation of a workforce development plan. As we talk about new benefits, you know a little bit about Talkspace, and as you know, it's a great benefit for staff, this one's a little bit unique because it includes all staff, including our per diems and their dependents. And this gives access to our staff to have therapy services 24/7. They can talk with a dedicated therapist, video chat with them, And really, they can do it anytime. If they wake up in the middle of the night and they want to send a text to their therapist, they can do so, and the therapist will get back to them. It's just a really remarkable benefit that I'm really glad we're providing. We also, we really care about the success, the financial success of all of our employees. And so we've been using Prudential Pathways, which is a series of webinars to really give employees communication and tools about financial planning so that they can prepare for their financial futures. And that's been really successful for staff. As we looked at our virtuals benefit fair, which we put together in response to the COVID pandemic, we recognized that employees really enjoyed having a virtual benefits fair. They could go at their own time, they could go through it at their own pace. And so we have continued that, and we'll continue that this year because we just got a lot of great feedback from holding that event. Okay. As we continued through the year, we did partner with Capella University and Strayer University, allowing staff to receive a really significant discount on college courses. This obviously allows staff to continue their development and learn through an online platform, even allowing them to receive degrees. It's been a really great thing. And then as we continue on the conversation of financial preparedness, we recognized that many of our employees have student debt. And so with the help of Fidelity, we created and allow them now to cash in a portion of their unused personal leave to pay off their student loans. So it's a chunk of money that they otherwise wouldn't have, and they can now put it towards their student loans, which is a really great option. And I just want to emphasize that this doesn't allow them to cash out all their PL. We still require them to take vacations, right? And that's because we all need that time away. But it does allow them to take a portion of that and put it towards their student loans, which employees have really enjoyed. We've done a lot with recruitment. I mean, recruitment's been a struggle, as you can, pretty much wherever you drive across the country, there's help wanted signs in the windows, right? And I just am really proud of our staff because we added an additional recruiter, and we've been really ramping up our recruitment efforts to get people in the door and have them recognize how great of an opportunity they have in front of them. And many of them come on and stay and love the organization. So, but it is tricky sometimes to make sure people from even different parts, when you start talking, a lot of these employees are coming from outside of the Truckee area and Tahoe area. So they don't even know that jobs are open at Tahoe Forest. And so it's been really great to have a new recruiter and better tools of the trade, if you will. We did also create a new temporary benefited employment status. And really what that did is it allowed us to be a little bit more nimble. We have lots of employee statuses, and we recognized early in the pandemic that we were going to need to have a different status for employees that would be here for a portion of time, but may not be full-time benefited employee that is a permanent employee. So this allows us to have temporary employees. This really helps us from using temporary agencies, and it's been really great. And then we continued, I think you've heard of courageous conversations and resiliency rounds, and this just gives an opportunity for staff to get together, talk about some stressors in life, and it's really supported by our peer support committee, which I know you've heard of. Throughout the past year, we've continued to engage staff through different activities throughout the year. We've had our annual service awards, which was held this year via Zoom. We had a virtual magician. It was really a great event. We got great feedback. Martina, I think we're on the wrong slide now.
Yeah, hang on a second. Sorry, I was trying to let somebody back into Zoom.
That's okay. I'm going to go ahead and continue on. We did, as you guys know, we earned third place this year. Last fiscal year, we received second place in best places to work, which is just a really awesome recognition. We actually, one of the things we recognized was that, we weren't able to have our holiday party. And so we wanted to still honor our employees, and we bought them life straws. And life straws are really cool devices that you can use the straw to suck water out of even a puddle if you're in the backcountry. Staff really enjoyed that. Of course, we had many food truck events for Hospital Week and during the Tahoe Forest Treat Trail, which I'm going to talk about. ACE's baseball group events were held, which have been very popular. We had a virtual mask decorating contest, pumpkin decorating contest. our pumpkin carving and gingerbread house contest. Those are always popular. And created Pets of Tahoe Forest, which is on our intranet. It's surprising, you know, somebody asked me, they said, hey, can we upload photos of our pets on the intranet? And I thought, sure, why not? And within hours, the page was flooded with people adding their pets. And it was really great for staff to get together virtually, sharing their pets. And it's amazing how many comments came out of that one page where people are like, oh my gosh, your dog and your cat are so cute, or your pet pig are so cute. So it was really fun to see that. We also held a food drive this year for the Sierra Community House, which yielded a lot of food. And it's always nice to give back to different organizations as well. As you know, we've been continuing to climb with our Press Ganey employee engagement survey. And, you know, it just shows the dedication of our employees, and it shows how happy they are working for an organization like ours. And, you know, it's 91st percentile it's a remarkable thing. And as we continue to look at this, I just have to say, this is 91st percentile is huge. You know, I hope that we can get to that same place again, especially over the past 12 months, you know, with the turmoil going on, not only, you know, just outside of the organization, it's really impacting people inside. So it's remarkable to see that number during a pandemic. And as I'm so lucky to talk to other organizations, and many of them, they're like, how are you doing this? Which is really remarkable. We continued our values advocacy committee, and that has just been an exceptional group of individuals who help us through different events. They assisted this year with the Tahoe Forest Tree Trail, which was an event that we put together to recognize employees and also recognize that we couldn't gather. So we wanted to come up with something where people could walk around campus. They weren't gathering, they wore their masks, and they were able to receive treats, get different drinks, and then finish it up with food trucks. It was a lot of fun. We held a penny drive this year. We raised $1,259, which we then used to purchase Safeway gift cards and other gift cards to give to employees who might need financial assistance through the holidays. And that was just the people that impacted. It really meant a lot to them. So we will continue that as well in the future. Of course, the Values Advocacy Committee participated in Hospital Week. They helped with all of the booths that we had. They were handing out coffee and cookies and popsicles. Each day of Hospital Week, we tried to do a different activity. And it's the values advocates that made it all come together. So I'm just so appreciative of them. And the committee members encourage staff to fill out surveys. You know, this is a group of individuals that they bring to us, you know, different rumors they're hearing, different, you know, activities that they might want to see. And it's been really valuable to have this group of people. So I just can't say enough about them. And then we're going to switch over to education. There's been a lot of education that happened, and I can't believe we're going to cover it in only 2 slides. But when we talk about education, we had over 10 simulation events that were conducted. And this is just to maintain staff skills and competencies in the emergency department, women and family medical surgery, pretty much all the inpatient units. We also worked with urgent care clinics who received training on the new trauma equipment and supplies. And then, which we used to do in the Eskridge conference room, we had winter injury case reviews, and we changed it to a virtual format because of COVID, of course. But what we found was that when we did that, a lot more attendees were able to come and participate. And so that has been just a really popular change. And this is for many of our pre-hospital staff who attend, and it's just been really popular. We had 55 nurses trained in trauma care after resuscitation, which is TCAR, and we did that through grant funding. And we had a new cycle of the Tahoe Forest Leadership Academy or program, which began for leaders to obtain certification through a partnership with UNR. And so UNR comes, they teach classes at our organization, and we send some of our leaders to UNR to receive education as well. And then in my last slide for education, we talk a little bit about just-in-time education. And this is what makes up a lot of education's time. And this is where directors or leaders or even staff come to our education team and say, hey, can you do an education training on X? And they take the time, they research it, they put together a training, and then they go out and deliver
Okay, we've lost you.
We're going to go ahead. Let me see if Alex gets back on. We'll go back to that slide, but we're going to transition to Dr. Cole under People for Medical Staff.
Hello, I told you guys I would be back for one more slide. We have had an explosion of our medical staff since 2015, where we had 115 core. Now we have 170, which is an extremely, extreme amount of growth there. We also take medical students and teach those medical and APP students. This past fiscal year, we had 31 APP students and 11 medical students in all of our different realms of medicine. We also not only advertise lots of opportunity for complementary CME, but we also host our own CME. And we did 34 sessions of CME, which is almost 3 a month. That's almost a weekly CME for our medical staff, which is a huge amount. And then we have partnered with the Nevada Physician Wellness Coalition and also the Mayo Clinic Physician and Advanced Practice Provider Wellbeing Program. And what this does is it helps us to assess where our medical staff is on the spectrum of burnout, and also gives them resources with lectures and also small roundtable discussions to really feel connected with other people who might be going through similar burnout situations. And that's all I had for my slide. I'm happy to finish Alex's slide. If
I think Alex, I was just going to ask, Shawnee was going to ask Alex if he was back in and he wanted to finish slide 31.
I apologize. I'm not sure what happened. I haven't moved or anything. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure where you lost me, but or where I lost you, I suppose. But just-in-time education is the stuff that people come to us and they ask for us to do education, or on the fly, if you will. And our team really responds quickly. They put together the education and they give it to the staff as it's needed. And this year there was many examples, but we had new rapid infuser training in many of the inpatient units. We had ISTAT training in the ED, COVID procedures, of course, and that includes PPE trainings, or personal protective equipment training. And then we created a QR code for many of the educational activities, so that employees could just go up, take their cell phone out, scan a QR code, and receive the education that we had put together right then, whenever they are, whether it's 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. And so I'm just really proud of that team who responded so quickly with all the different activities. And with that, I will close out and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alex. We're going to move on to our Finance Foundation of Excellence, and Crystal Betts, our Chief Financial Officer, will present our accomplishments.
Good evening. So I'm just going to hit a few highlights here of various areas within our finance team. Our Access Center, we started that a few years ago now. From that, we've found areas that could use some improvement, and we try to concentrate on 2 or 3 process improvements every year. This year, we looked at registration. Our customer service team was getting a lot of return mail, and so we wanted to work with our registration staff to make sure they were focusing in on the accuracy of the addresses, to make sure that our statements and billings went to the proper household and wasn't getting returned instead. We also worked with them on missing registration items. So we need to make sure we have complete registration in order to accurately bill and collect. So that was one of the projects. We also worked on making sure we got all the procedures authorized. And so we wanted to reduce the number of procedures that we didn't have an authorization for. Usually with no authorization, there's no payment. You can try to appeal it, but it's very difficult. So that was another area we wanted to work on to make sure we were getting that number as low as possible. We also started a pilot program with one of the clinics to work on reducing no-shows or late cancellations. So that was just a pilot project right now, but there were some things we learned from it, and hopefully we can carry that into other clinics. The Access Center also created what we call the next availability reports, and this has been great because we're able to see how far out scheduling is to try to get someone in for imaging therapy or just straight into their provider in the clinics. And this has really pushed our team to work on access for our patients, because we can really tell how far out or how long it takes a person to see their provider. So this was very informative for our team, and we've been able to start taking some good action off of it. There's also just a few stats here. Our customer service team collected just over $3.2 million in the last year, averaging about $270,000 a month. That's significantly up for us as we've started with our customer service program. The number of inbound and outbound calls our scheduling and authorizations team is handling is phenomenal, almost 448,000 in a year. And the number of referrals we worked is above 300,000 as well. So they're definitely busy, to definitely say the least. Patient registration. They developed a training program for all registrars to take, focusing on customer service. We wanted to be consistent across the board with how our team operates. So that was created and implemented. As you heard when we were talking about technology, we now have e-signature forms so patients can sign them on a signature pad instead of on paper. That's been really great. We implemented emergency department, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and urgent care estimates. This is a way for us to provide education to our patients about pricing and out-of-pocket costs. It has helped to reduce questions that are asked, because we are doing it up front, and really helping reduce patient complaints. And we'll continue to refine this area. It's a huge area right now of people wanting to be informed for sure about what it's going to cost them out of pocket. We also implemented what we call the early contact in the emergency department. When appropriate, we now have financial counselors trying to connect with our patients to educate them about our financial programs real time, instead of post discharge and trying to chase them down later, letting them know about these programs, hopefully reducing their stress levels to know that there are financial programs available. So that's been a very positive impact on our patients in the ED. HIM has been busy. We did an RFP for coding for the organization, and we felt it was time to look at other vendors out in the world of healthcare. We did an RFP and selected 2 vendors, actually, one who would primarily do coding, and a second one that would do backup coding, but would also do audits and education for our providers. It's been a great selection. We're in the middle of implementation right now, and I think we'll see some huge benefits from having 2 diversified companies working with us. As I mentioned, we had one doing education. Sorry, one step back, Martina. One big thing I wanted to hit on is we have been working very hard to give our providers feedback on coding and letting them know how they might be able to document better or select a code better and provide them education. It's been very well received. They've been asking for this for a long time. So this is a big win for us to be able to do that. And we're hoping that our providers who are efficient and know coding well can now fly on their own instead of the district reviewing and coding each one of their accounts. So that will help us financially as well. Accounting, you've heard some of this already, working on our Kaufman Hall products, the cost accounting decision support module. We're also working on the daily productivity management module. And so we did finish the first phase with the hospital billing portion in the cost accounting. We've now moved on to professional billing, and we should be having productivity up and operating here very soon. It's been a challenge with payroll and trying to link all our systems together to feed that, but I think we're there. Materials management was definitely stressed during the COVID pandemic. They had a lot to worry about to make sure we were adequately stocked, and they did a phenomenal job. In addition, they had to implement the 90-day disaster stockpile, which was required by the state. They successfully did that very quickly. They also had a new policy that they had to implement called the vendor diversity policy. It requires reporting to the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development to let them know that we try to utilize vendors that are diverse. So women-owned, Black-owned companies, LBG companies. I mean, all the various diversities that are out there. They want to know that we're trying to work with those companies, and we have to report that to the state now. So that's been very interesting to try to create a policy and implement that policy. So especially being a small organization. Next slide. Revenue cycle. We already talked about the clearinghouse. That's been very successful. Of course, trying to make sure we're billing and charging appropriately, coding appropriately, billing appropriately, everything related to COVID-19, that's been a real challenge. And then of course the builds we already talked about that affect revenue cycle as well, and that's been pretty successful. Just getting into some highlights, these graphs were very fun to put together. It's great to kind of look from 2012 to 2021, and you know, these are still preliminary 2021 numbers when we put this together, and of course we're getting closer to final audit, but the growth in our cash position on our balance sheet is amazing. Where we were in 2012, you know, with about, you know, 50 million in cash to where we are today with about 140 million in cash. So phenomenal growth on this slide. On our next slide, this is basically our equity position or our net position. And to see we were around 100,000 in 2012 to being more than double that now in 2021. So the financial growth has been very positive in our equity position. On our next slide, this is just our total assets. And we've gone from about 235 million to almost 412 million. We continue to see that upward trend, which is exactly what we want. On our next slide, this is just showing the average daily census and their length of stay. And you can totally see where COVID kicked in here, where in 2019, you know, we popped up to 14.68 as our average daily census and still are in the 14 range, and that our length of stay has climbed. And that's due to the severity of patients, whether it's COVID related or those that, you know, may have been cooped up too long and are having health issues from maybe some behavior that they shouldn't have partaked in and whatever it might be, but we definitely see the climb here. These are our deliveries, our babies. Over the years, we are pretty darn consistent in staying at that mid 300 range over the years. So not a whole lot different in this area. On our next slide is our emergency department. And this is where we're actually seeing a decline. So you can see in 2020 and 2021, we really started seeing a slight downward slope where we've been hovering at Tahoe Forest at about the mid 13.5, and Incline has stayed fairly consistent, but a little bit of drop off in these last couple of years. Next slide, this is huge growth. This goes back to what Shawnee was saying about the explosion of our medical staff, really talking about our providers joining our team, the expansion of our services, and you can just see our clinic visits have shot through the roof. Back in fiscal year 14, you know, those two numbers are about 44,000, and, you know, we're now at over 110,000. I mean, just phenomenal growth here, and this is a fun slide to look at. This just shows you the overall growth in our revenue and our expenses, and of course the gap represents our net income or our profit. We continue to be successful in generating a profit, which is exactly what we need to do in order to reinvest in this organization and our community. And so these trends are all extremely positive, and the growth has been very, very good for this organization. It's going to allow us to really concentrate on the next 10 years with our master plan and the things we want to do for our community. And this is just our margin or net income, our net position, as it would say on our income statement. And you can see here that last couple of years, we've been in the 8% range, but we've had pretty positive margins except for back in fiscal year 13. Other than that, we've been quite strong. And then here's our cash collections, which goes back to some of the work the revenue cycle teams have been working on in registration and customer service. That upfront collection really helps us. It helps us not have to bill on the back end. And you can see the demonstrated effort over the years of us improving that situation. And I think that's it.
That is it. Thank you, Crystal. And we'll fast forward to slide 54. And Matt Rouse, our in-house counsel, will present.
Matt Rouse is great, but
Matt Mouche, our in-house counsel, will present. Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
I was thinking about Matt from Crystal's presentation.
Yeah, I like Crystal's slides. So I'll be quick, and that's the only time you're going to hear that from an attorney. I really appreciate the board, taking the time to listen to all our accomplishments. It's been a long night, and it's a pleasure to serve amongst all my co-executives here. It's a great team. So a few years back, the hospital made a wise decision to insource its legal services. I have a glare. Obviously, the bulk of those are healthcare, law, regulatory, contracts, and all the various types of transactions that go along with that. There are a few things that we obviously use specialists for, and a few come to mind. That would be, employment situations with the union, or that rare instance where we have a civil suit and we need litigation. Recently, we had to do conservatorship. So, once in a while we use specialists, but much better to have services centralized and pick the times that we want for those exceptions. This is not only efficient, it saves money, but it frees up the resources we have. And so all those other things you've heard on the phone or your personal device tonight, those people can do what it is they're doing. So that's the key thing of what we want to get out of saving people time and not having to figure out what to do with legal problems when they hit their desk. I know I didn't put this on the slide. I was worried about, the gory details getting out there. I'd much rather talk to everyone behind the scenes for that, since it's a public meeting. But that's mainly what we've accomplished in a nutshell. I mean, I won't go through every case, so I apologize for being super quick here. I know you hate me for it, but I'll pass it back to Judy.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate sharing your accomplishments. And our last foundation of excellence is growth, and Scott Baker will begin those accomplishments.
Thanks, Judy. Yeah, as Crystal just outlined, the growth, especially in the outpatient realm, has been pretty remarkable the last 4 years now. The list of specialties that you see on your screen saw pretty significant growth this fiscal year, which, if you do the math, that is the vast majority of our service lines. The percentages you see on the screen, some of those numbers are almost unheard of. But to average a 33% growth, especially during these times, is pretty unheard of. The natural reaction is that last year might have been a little bit reduced because of COVID, and that was true. But if you average the last 2 years of growth, we have averaged a 29% growth in outpatient clinic visits, which is just remarkable. You see, especially I'll point out behavioral health and endocrinology had just huge years of growth. That's both organic growth with the current providers that we have, but also additional hires that came on board at the end of the last fiscal year, and we saw the rewards this fiscal year. Next slide. So the growth that we saw in the added physicians and providers this year is relatively small compared to last year. Last year, this list was more than double, but this fiscal year's growth in clinic visits is because of the additions that we made last fiscal year. As you've heard in other presentations, we're starting to be rate limited in our space for how many additional providers that we can bring on board, but we're in the process of building additional space to support the continued growth of the outpatient clinics. And next slide, which I think is the last. Couple highlights. During last fiscal year, we got our rural health designation for the Incline Health Center. And that happened relatively early in the fiscal year. And then just recently, we got an additional rural health clinic designation for the second floor of the cancer center. So that continues to be a key strategy in our growth plan. Ophthalmology was added in June of 2021, and Dr. Conway continues to be very popular in the Incline arena, and we've already filled her up in her initial schedule and have additional plans to continue to improve access to that service line. You see the numbers, the raw numbers for the clinic visits, which if you do that math is about 29% year over year for the last 2 years. I do want to highlight the orthopedic physician assistant program. Those numbers, 13% in clinic encounters and 19% in total surgical cases. While those numbers alone are impressive, that last bullet point is really the most impressive, is that normally we have 4 orthopedic surgeons on our staff, but during the fiscal year, for the vast majority of the year, we only had 3, yet still saw those improved numbers and access for our patients, and that's entirely due to the PA program that we implemented in the orthopedic service line. We've recently added our 4th surgeon back into the rotation, so we expect those numbers to be even more impressive next year. The COVID clinic itself, based in the old Women's Center in the back of campus, saw 3,400 encounters, in-person encounters during the fiscal year, which is a great service to our community. And then behavioral health, the 300+% number that you saw on the previous slide now has seen they saw 2,700 encounters in 2021, the last fiscal year, and I can already give you the punchline to next fiscal year. That number is going to be even more impressive as we continue improvement in access for that service line to our community. And next, and I believe this is Karen.
Okay, so this slide is showing you about the customer navigation program. If you remember back when Harry first came on, this was a huge initiative that he had. And you can see that this number has grown substantially. There were 4,263 referrals that came through customer care navigation. And it's broken out with the majority of those referrals going to behavioral health at almost 2,000, followed by nutrition, which is an awesome improvement for the overall health and wellness of our community at 729, stress management and self-management programs in the 400s, and our youth health program at 369. So we've been able to touch 369 of our kids in the community through this navigation program, and perinatal services at 360. A couple years ago, we added the intensive cardiac rehab, not showing as great as what we'd like, and that's because cardiac rehab was shut down for a month during COVID, and in 21, and then we were shut down for 3 months in fiscal year 20. So, but that program continues to show growth with 1,593 of our eligible sessions, our billable sessions, 36 new patient starts and 44.2 average sessions per person that comes through the cardiac rehab program. So a great job by the intensive cardiac rehab program.
Thank you, Karen. I'm just gonna do a couple of growth slides, and just to let everybody know, for our Tahoe Forest Health System Foundation, they had a very successful year of raising a little over $880,000. So thank you to the donors in the Truckee, North Tahoe community. Additionally, they supported 2 grants for behavioral health services that was approximately $900,000 to contribute to that program that Karen has spoken to. Incline Village Community Hospital Foundation had a successful year, raising a little over $1 million. And I really just want to thank the foundations and the donors. They really make a difference to our health system and really contribute to our ongoing care for our patients. The team member giving, just a reminder, that's our staff. And in fiscal year 20, we had 181 participants, and this year we had 251 and raised over $46,000. That is wonderful for the staff contribution. And they make a decision on what they want to use those funds for. And this year they purchased PAPRs, powered air purifying respirators, for the frontline staff. And then the Grateful Patient Program, which is for patients to thank their caregivers. This year we had $115,000 of funds that were given. Tahoe Forest Health System had 223 gifts totaling $32,000, and Incline Village Community Foundation had 47 gifts totaling $85,000. I also just want to, next slide please, mention just a couple new service lines. So you're all aware, our iStat rapid lab testing, which is point of care testing at the bedside, allows us to do lab results rapidly for the patient. We implemented some blood gas testing for the trauma patients. We provided a drive-by flu shot for the first time last year for Tahoe Forest, at Tahoe Forest Hospital for the Truckee community. We put a hold on our master planning and re-engaged that in fiscal year 21. Probably the biggest piece of that I want to just remind you all is we had a community outreach in which we involved the community in just sharing with us their experience and how they would like to have their experience in through master planning. It was exciting to see ultrasound services started at Incline 3 days a week, and that has filled up every day. So those 3 days a week. So that is nice for that community. And again, our laboratory testing, the BioFire is a 21 respiratory panel testing, though it's COVID. Prior to COVID, this was something the physician, the medical staff had requested. So we have that testing both available at Incline and Tahoe Forest Hospital, actually thanking a donor for those purchasing of those equipment. And then additionally, regarding our master plan, we started construction on the second floor of the medical office building, which really is going to expand space for primary care and behavioral health services. And just a quick thank you for all the work our facilities did to, in the COVID, they built barriers, they changed infrastructure, and really did a lot to mitigate potential COVID impacts. So those were some of the accomplishments regarding increasing growth in some of the operations. And then I'd like to transition to Ted Owens, the Executive Director of Governance and Business Development.
Thank you, Judy, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for your patience this evening in going through all of this. I'll be very quick. This past year in governance, both in the state of Nevada and the state of California, as well as the federal government, was again challenging due to the pandemic. It is amazing the difference in the behavior of legislatures when lobbyists, advocates, and citizens do not have access to them in the dance of legislation. So we have to do it distantly. We were active, very active in penning letters and support for various associations that we belong to and participate with, perhaps more so than last year, actually, again, largely due to the pandemic. Some of the highlights or lowlights, depends on the issue. You have in front of us disaster preparedness preparedness modernization. This is also associated with seismic regulations in the state of California. We've been working very hard to get those extended from 2030 to 2037 because many hospitals in the rural environment are not able financially, particularly after the pandemic, to catch up and meet those requirements. We did support and participated in a coalition effort, which was spearheaded by the California Hospital Association to change the criteria in the modernization language. Those negotiations to include the new language was built into the budget process, and unfortunately it's stalled, but it will be taken up next year. But we did have a win in telehealth with Assemblywoman Aguilar Curry, who usually writes legislation that's not so beneficial to us. But this past year, she wrote a bill, AB 32, which makes permanent telehealth flexibilities that were put into place during the COVID pandemic, including fair reimbursement. It has passed the Assembly. It is held in the Senate Health Committee right now, and it will be taken up again next year in the second year of the session. Skilled nursing facilities is a big concern to us and to all hospitals and health systems that have long-term care facilities. We strongly opposed AREA's bill, which was AB 849. That bill establishes a $500 per violation instead of per case fine rate for violations in skilled nursing facilities. Also with no caps on attorney's fees. So this is an attempt at a Employment Act for lawyers. We're working very hard to kill this bill, but right now negotiating on amendments is on hold, and it'll be taken up again next year. One of the governor's big ideas or things that he'd like to implement is the Office of Healthcare and Affordability. This was carried by a provider, actually, who's an Assembly member, Assemblymember Wood, creating the Office of Healthcare and Affordability, which would oversee and regulate healthcare pricing in a very similar fashion to the Department of Insurance with insurance rates. Ultimately, the goal would be for health systems, hospitals to basically submit their pricing to this office or this agency, and it would be either denied or approved. So we're concerned with that. Right now, it's paused by the author, largely due to the recall election, but we expect it will reemerge in short order. But at this point, it'll be taken up next year. I'm going to jump to mandatory bonus pay. This was one we vigorously opposed, AB 650. This was a poorly thought out bill. It was well-intentioned for bonus pay for healthcare workers during the COVID pandemic. However, one of the dangers of it was it threatened health systems in California to at least the tune of $6 billion. Others had it pegged at about $8 billion when hospitals and health systems are recovering from financial strain during the COVID pandemic. It did die in a committee, and I don't estimate that that will come back because it'll be a stale issue in the next year session. Next slide, thank you. We have continued outreach with senior leadership. I work on that, Harry works on that with other local healthcare districts. You know well that we have formed an LLC consisting of 4 hospital members for beneficial business purposes. The Truckee Tahoe, Workforce Housing JPA is alive. It's a year old. It is now running. As we all know, housing is in short supply, and many of the things that we thought about housing in the initial days have been turned upside down by COVID and the influx of folks from the Bay Area moving to the Truckee Tahoe area. However, we are making strides in placements. We are looking good to others. The town of Truckee, Placer County, and Nevada County sought to join the JPA and made formal requests. The board has accepted that, and they will be members shortly, I believe next month. And that expands the agency membership to 7. What it does is it brings other monies to the table, if you will, through land approving agencies that can access state funding or federal funding for workforce housing or for affordable housing. So that's within our membership, and we expect much more activity in this next year. And then, of course, leadership, Tahoe Force leaders have continued serving various boards and organizations. They are listed there for you. I'm not going to read them all the way through and save you a little bit of time, but we continue to expand our footprint and our presence out and about and within the community. And I believe that is the end of mine.
Thank you, Ted. And we'll just do a quick reminder of some of our accomplishments for our COVID response. Very quickly, just again, are implementing, it seems so long ago, but implementing our Abbott ID now. Symptomatic quick testing, our BioFire we already talked about. We built and updated an area for indoor pediatric respiratory illness clinic. We expanded our drive-in adult respiratory clinic in Truckee. We moved our inpatient lab draw to outpatient, so it was safer for our community members. We initiated the monoclonal antigen therapy program. We actually established an adult respiratory illness clinic in Tahoe City. We will not all forget the beginning of the COVID vaccine for our employees at Tahoe Forest and Incline, that program. We then developed a vaccine for our community at Sierra College, and we developed vaccine for community at Incline. We added a third high-level sensitivity testing for COVID, and we then moved our Sierra College vaccine to Gateway. And I did not add all of the other accomplishments related to responding to federal and state regulations on COVID, along with our supply chain management. I know Crystal mentioned it, our human resources management and our communication to our staff, our finance managing federal, state grants, along with our public information team doing social media. That, the board of directors, is our accomplishments for fiscal year 2021. Thank you so long. We did not anticipate spending an hour and a half, but we thought it would be much shorter with the vaccine, with the pandemic, and really we had a lot of accomplishments. And thank you so much for taking the time to listen to all that our health system, our staff, medical staff, our executives, our directors, managers have accomplished, and Harry, during this past year.
Well, Judy, thank you, and thank all of the chiefs and directors and all those involved with those accomplishments. I think it was Alex who said that we were going through all the accomplishments so fast, and I'm sitting here thinking they accomplished that all in the year, and the year is almost over. So again, thank you, and thank all of your staff for the wonderful job you've done in keeping our healthcare system alive, keeping our patients safe, and providing them with quality of care. Are there any other comments from our board regarding the annual accomplishments of our healthcare system?
Alice Dale here. It's gone on so long, I'm loath to ask this question, but I'm curious. Crystal, the ER is down, but provider office visits is way up. Isn't this a trend line we like to see?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. And then for Karen, just a quick question. You mentioned that, and you know, I got to tell you, I moved, one of the reasons I moved up to Tahoe was to get away from the evils of the big city. So I was surprised to hear you say that the ER has human traffic screening. Is human trafficking a problem up here at Tahoe?
You're on mute, Karen.
You're on mute, Karen.
Sorry. The human trafficking is happening all over the United States. So we are on a gateway path between Sacramento and Reno, which has high human trafficking. And so oftentimes you may see somebody come in from, you know, outside the area. So it's not necessarily just our community, Dale, it's people that are traveling through our area. And it's important that we have a focus on those things that are going on. Sometimes small cities, it doesn't really matter where you are, Dan. So
Okay.
it's not a significant problem here, but it's something that we need to be aware of.
I think it was just recently on the news in Reno where there was a conviction of human trafficking by a past resident. I mean, she was the one that convicted them of human trafficking. So again, we're the gateway. We're on I-80. We're going to see it all.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
I would just like to thank Eileen Knutson, who allowed this team to go before here, and here it is almost 8 o'clock. So thank you, Eileen.
So with that appreciation, I'm going to ask the audience, are there any comments for our annual accomplishment report?
Fabulous.
Okay, then I am going to move on so that Eileen Knutson can give us the behavioral health annual report.
Okay, hopefully everybody can hear me.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me this evening to represent both our Prime and behavioral health programs. I'll begin by talking a little bit, a quick review of the Public Hospital Redesign and Incentive Medi-Cal program, gosh, a mouthful, which is a state-directed program known as Prime. The most impressive words to describe this body of work that has encompassed the last 5 years can be easily captured by the numerous accomplishments of which I hope to share with you. The main goal for Prime was to help augment primary care delivery to help maximize the value for all Medi-Cal patients. This was accomplished by utilizing evidence-based data that helped drive quality improvement methods and best practice tools. A good example is the patient health questionnaire, which is currently being utilized in all primary care clinic settings to screen patients for depression at every visit. We began 5 years ago establishing a baseline for 17 state-approved protocols, and I'm happy to say we're able to meet target performances, 10% improvement year over year for most all of those metrics, resulting in annual financial compensation. More importantly, the Prime program assisted in improving the capacity to provide point-of-care services. An example would be our behavioral health clinical resources and improved complex and population health care management. This incredible team included care coordinators, health coaches, health promoters, IT assistants, provider champions, clinicians, clinical staff, plus the endless support of our chief nursing officer, Karen Buffone, and our administrative team. This year, our project, this 5-year project recently ended July 1st, 2021. Next slide, please. So our first project in Prime was chronic pain. I'm not going to go over each of these, but as you can see, it has been an impressive improvement from expert the improvement of screening for brief intervention and referral to treatment for alcohol and drug screening went from 2% to 37%. From cures, if you take a look at 2017 to 2018, there was a huge jump, and that was due to a state mandate that has also helped move the needle to improvement. And all of these initiatives have helped us attain the hospital care for, to be recognized for the opioid use honor roll, which we have received 2 years in a row. Next slide, please. Our achievement for Million Hearts, which is from controlling blood pressure to tobacco assessment. As you can see, we didn't do so well in controlling blood pressure, especially in these last 2 and 3 years. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. The metric changed to different requests, and so we had to change in midstream. There was a pandemic, and there was other issues as well. So we have made a conscious decision in rolling this particular metric to improve, hopefully, in the next 3 years with our QIP program, which I'll explain in a few minutes. But other than that, we have made some market improvements and maintain our tobacco assessment in all of the clinics. But we're going to also continue with that particular metric because we're hoping to add referrals to California quits amongst our IT department, and that would be a new project. So we're hoping that will improve even more. Next slide, please. The last project for Prime was integrating behavioral health into primary care. It's hard to think of A1C or diabetes would be part of that, but it is related to a lot of behaviors. We've gone from 0% to 22% improvement. We still have a lot of work to do in improving that particular metric. In regards to adolescents, for our depression screen, we have a consistent improvement with the addition of new behavioral health intensivists and the adoption of algorithms, protocols, and the support of a provider champion. Next slide, please. So our Prime transition to QIP. So what is QIP? It is a quality incentive pool. It's also a state-run program. It will go from January of 2021 through the next 3 years. They started with a district, large public hospitals that have adopted QIP in 2017 and expanded to small district hospitals in January of 2021. So we're very excited about having this new opportunity to work on several of these metric achievements and work with our primary care providers in these improvement efforts. Our target population is a little different than it was in Prime. We are concentrating more with the Medi-Cal managed care partners, the California Health and Wellness partner, and the Blue Cross Anthem partnership. And our successful improvement efforts will result in a greater incentive improvement than Prime. In fact, it's double what we received from Prime. We'll hope to receive twice as much financial compensation. Next slide, please. The team includes that we will continue with our coordinators. We found an incredible health coach that was an open position through our great addition to the recruiters and our HR department. We've added a health promotor to help address disparities. And myself will be transitioning as Director of Prime and QIP. My retirement replacement will be Maria Martin, who is currently the Director of Wellness, Neighborhood, and Community Health. Our focus areas are a lot more than they were in Prime. We've added more primary care access and preventative care, such as immunization, well child visits, breast and cervical cancer screening, depression screening and follow-up, which is the same metric as a Prime, and tobacco screening, the same metric as Prime. We're also adding substance use disorders, which was not in Prime, even though we had a very strong medication-assisted treatment program that we have worked on separately, as well as depression remission and response. For our care coordination, we will be developing new workflow processes to address medication reconciliation for Medi-Cal inpatients upon discharge. And that is a huge addition to care coordination because they have spent the last several years in their transitional care management program with Medicare patients. So I'm excited to say that we can now add Medi-Cal inpatients, and as we all know, medication reconciliation is very, very important in helping to reduce those barriers for patients that are immediately discharged. Again, we are going to continue with controlling blood pressure. We have some new initiatives such as adding blood pressure cuffs for Medi-Cal patients that will speak to the electronic health system if we can get that going in the next 3 years with Kyle's team. The care of acute and chronic conditions includes diabetes, and what's special about this particular metric is that we will be addressing disparities so that we can all have a more targeted approach to improving care. And then lastly is our maternal and perinatal health, which is exclusive breast milk feeding. We're already doing fairly well in that particular metric, but there is still some room for improvement, especially in the Medi-Cal population. Next slide, please. So what are our challenges? What's new in QIP is that we have to develop really good, strong partnerships with both Medi-Cal managed care plans. And through the help of Crystal's department and Emily Perez and that team, we've been able to begin those relationships in the last several months, and they are providing us now with care gap reports for all primary care, and many of those metrics are in those care gap reports, and it will help us to move forward in improving some of these initiatives. We are working on, we actually are tracking 16 metrics, but we will only report on 10 to assure that we meet all metric goals in 2022, and so that we can assure that we'll get that incentive compensation. The query development has been very arduous because each metric is about 18 to 20 pages of query reporting, and it has taken us several months, probably 6 months now, on developing and assuring that their appropriate query reports are in good order. We are also hoping that we will get pay for reporting versus pay for performance. We're hoping that state will choose this particular result-oriented plan so that we can get paid for these initiatives. And I think so much of what has happened in this past year, not only was attributed to the late start, we're just really getting started, and it's already been 6 months into this year. The baseline is 2020, and the improvement efforts of these metrics have been put on the back burner in many ways with the pandemic, space limitations, and the increase in demand for services, especially with our population surge. Next slide, please. So that's it for Prime. I'll talk a little bit about behavioral, Prime transition. I just missed a slide here. Behavioral health, okay. So behavioral health. We have, as you all know, increased and augmented the existing team through several new hires. We have added 2 FTEs this past winter that include a behavioral health intensivist to address social services issues and mental health issues in Incline Village. And thank you, Judy, for allowing us to have this dedicated space, which has made a huge difference for our patients. We have also hired a behavioral health intensivist specific to the pediatric department that is hopefully going to be integrated into the primary care team within the next few months. And we currently are seeing patients in the Levon building, but as soon as some space opens up, this particular behavioral health intensivist will be integrated into primary care, which I think will see a big difference in help with those providers. So we've adopted the integrated behavioral model of care. Some help was that grant, the HRSA grant that we were awarded 2 years ago. We are now in our 3rd year. This has supported our initial behavioral health intensivist. We were able to recruit additional psychiatric nurse practitioners to address adult and then hoping to address the pediatric patient needs. The patient health questionnaire was a huge part of the grant, and that, as Karen had already explained, we saw a marked increase in screening from 12% to 54%. We've improved workflow processes and things such as, changing algorithms and process flows with release of information, treatment agreements for behavioral health patients, thanks to the work that Matt Russo and Teresa Crow and our HIM, and it's just been taking this whole team to really provide appropriate and evidence-based care. So thank you for everybody's assistance in helping us to improve these processes. We have identified the need for emergency room follow-up after a crisis visit. So these are some of the improved workflow processes that we are currently working on. Just to review, as we discussed, we received that federal grant now in its 3rd year. We focused on the following objectives that Karen has already showed you. But please take a look at the first objective. As you can see, we screen that increases the proportion of unique patients. We screened 1,211 out of 10,292 patients in the fiscal year July 18 to 19. And this past fiscal year, we went up 56%. But what's more impressive is the increase in the number of patients from 1,211 to 6,900 out of 14,000. So that's, again, the additional providers and the additional resources that have enabled us to improve on this metric. Next slide, please. The behavioral health intensivist referrals have gone from an average between 0 and 50 per month to 191 referrals and 136 encounters per month, which is a huge jump in 1 year. So it's a tribute to the incredible work that everyone has done to help with this behavioral health program. The next slide, please. The 2018-2020 readmission diagnosis. Although we have provided more behavioral health services, we have unfortunately seen an increase in readmission, half expected given the stresses of the pandemic. So we really did well. We declined by 40% last year, but we quickly popped back up again. And I think that's due to all the stresses of the pandemic. Next slide, please. In regards to our medication-assisted treatment program, which provides medication as well as counseling support to patients experiencing opioid, we were lucky to add stimulant use disorder, which is your methamphetamine. We added that last year due to a grant that we had written. We were awarded $368,000 that ends the following year. That augments staffing costs. It pays for medications, patient co-pays, and actually medication storage boxes. We partnered with the California ED Bridge program, which provides and continues to provide education and mentoring support for our substance use navigator and the medication assisted treatment program. We were also awarded $100,000 to help fund the substance use navigator. And starting in January, that person will be able to bill for services as well. We hired and trained this substance use navigator, as Karen had already reviewed, to help improve patient access and follow through for those patients experiencing opioid use disorders. And our goal was to treat acute withdrawal in the emergency room to help patients begin their sobriety in a very safe and calm environment. Well, actually, probably not calm environment, but in a safe environment in the emergency room. We have identified new detox protocols for ICU patients for alcohol, and we're working very closely with the hospitalists in developing those protocols. The education begins next week, and education and training begins next week with our psychiatric nurse practitioner, Katina Varsos from Incline, who specializes in alcohol. And the support of clinical therapy services. Oh, sorry, next slide, please. I was going off track there. I apologize. Medication-assisted treatment patient caseload and referrals have increased from 0 in July 2019 to 108 in June of 21. And the last slide is the behavioral health transition. So our behavioral health will have a designated space in the rural health clinic upon the MSC primary care remodel completion in 2022, hopefully this spring. The prescribing nurse practitioners will continue to receive clinical oversight with our current medical director, Dr. Gail Pritchard, who is our current psychiatrist. Our psychotherapy team will continue to receive clinical oversight, and we're hoping to I should say our clinical psychologist will also be retiring in the next couple of months, and we're hoping to find a replacement that has can be a clinical lead and consider the role of having oversight over the all the therapy team members. The operations is now in transition to the MSC management team. Thank you, Scott, for all the work that you've helped in making that happen. And the workflow processes and behavioral health policies and procedures continue to be under development and in transition for clarity. So thank you for this opportunity and your unyielding support as we build these very important programs for our community.
And thank you, Eileen, for that presentation. I know we've been very interested in hearing more about behavioral health. And I'm currently, if you don't know it, I am attending the ACHD conference, which is being done virtually. And they have talked so much about, the mental health issues because of COVID, as well as just the healthcare disparities and what districts are doing in order to bridge that gap. So thank you again for the work that you've done. Thank you again for your presentation, and please extend our gratitude to all of your team. Does anybody from our board want to comment or question Eileen regarding her annual report?
No, it just except to add to your thanks and congratulations.
Yeah, and just recognize the importance of the work, not only in our community, but you're seeing it across the country. So great to see so much effort being put there.
Any comments from our staff or audience?
Hi, Alice. This is Karen. I just wanted to, again, recognize Eileen as she readies herself for retirement. Eileen and I go back to Prime, to Saturdays and Sundays, where she was like a mad scientist and I was the organizer. And she has been relentless with her work to make sure that this is present in our community. And I personally cannot thank her enough and her team for all the work that they have done, and her tenacity for making sure that things happen. So thank you again, Eileen, for everything that you've done for me, for the organization, and for the community.
Alice, if I could just share one additional thing, the PRIME program and the quality improvement initiatives have gotten much more complex. They're very results oriented. They're very complex, and it on an interim basis helped some of our very small rural hospitals, but now it's gotten so complex and the result expectations so tough that it's starting to get beyond their reach. So I'm really proud of our team to keep a firm grip on it, to provide a great service and to meet all the complexity requirements, because it's slipping away from the ability of some of our smaller rurals, which they also tell me that they're, as this money slips away, their cash balances slip away too in some of these small rural hospitals. So I'm just really proud of all the efforts we do. It's focused on our patients, but we've utilized this source of fund to create new offenses to help in mental health and a variety of other things. And again, we probably had very little mental health 3+ years ago. So it's been a huge effort to do this.
Harry, have we been able to help with that PRIME reporting? There are 16 metrics they have to track in order to fill out some of these forms. Has that been addressed in our IT system at all?
I'm sure they have ways to data mine, but I'll defer to Eileen or.
Yeah, I can answer that. Yes, we have a dedicated IT specialist who we've worked with for the last 5 years and continue to work with. We now have an additional person who has been added to the team because of the complexities of each of the metrics and all of the exclusion and inclusion criteria that have to be considered, and plus the fact that we have to assure that we're addressing Medi-Cal managed care and that they're assigned to our entity and that they meet all of those requirements as well. So it is arduous, but we have, I would say, an incredible team, and especially the IT folks have been monumental in helping us move forward with these metrics.
Okay. And thank you again, Eileen, and best wishes in your retirement.
Thank you. And thank you all. It's been a pleasure.
Moving on to 15.3. Harry and Judy, do you want to provide us with some updates on COVID-19, especially vaccines now and boosters?
Just very briefly, we've been tracking our weekly new COVID cases, and we were 93 the last 3 weeks, 93, 67, 118, and through an incomplete week with 6 days this week we're up to 80. So we're in kind of a little bit of a choppier high period, and about 8 to 9 weeks ago we were 20 and 50 cases, but hopefully we'll see next week tail off a little bit more. California seems to be tailing off nicely. The US seems to be tailing off. I just read about a new mutation today that's very deadly too. So this thing just is a little crazy, but I'll let Judy share her elements now.
Right, just a quick update. We have 3 COVID patients in-house at Tahoe Forest Hospital. We have 17 employees out. 8 of those are COVID positive. The others are on quarantine. And again, Harry just kind of gave some updates on statistics. So let me begin by the state mandate. So the state mandate again is regarding, first of all, our vaccination of our employees. So currently we are at 89.1% for vaccinations completed. So we have actually 1,114 employees. So that's 993. We have currently in process 2.4% or 27 individuals. We have approved exemptions, 50 individuals or 4.5%. And currently we have between unknown or leave of absences, approximately 3.4% individuals or 38. And actually 17 of those are people that are working, and we're still not sure what their decision is. As you know, September 30th is the deadline for vaccination. So that after that, beginning October 1, an individual is not qualified for their position if they're not vaccinated. We are fortunate enough, thank you to Tina Mather, our Director of Pharmacy, we have been able to obtain more J&J. Some of our staff would like to have J&J. And so we are to get that in, I think, on Wednesday, just some for Wednesday and Thursday for those staff who are still waiting to get their J&J vaccination. Regarding our testing, part of the mandate again is for those staff who are either exempt or still unvaccinated or partially vaccinated. They either require 1 test a week or 2 tests a week. And currently we have, I think, 77 employees that we are testing. Either again are partially vaccinated or exempt, or we're not sure what their decision will be. We are moving that testing. We had been doing it at our Gateway Vaccine Clinic Monday through Friday from 6:30 to 9:30, but we're actually moving it to our occupational health services, which I think is really exciting for the staff. So they can go over there 5 days a week between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. and they can get tested. So that really helps those that start at noon, et cetera. And at Incline, they'll be able to go to the lab for that. So I think that'll be a better service for our staff. So regarding the booster, a lot of communication happening the last 24 hours, actually even in the last 6 hours. So let me just, for clarification, because I think there's always confusion because you hear this, you hear that. So what the process is, the FDA gives their recommendation, then the CDC acts on that recommendation, and then CDPH acts on that recommendation. So on Wednesday, the FDA gave recommendations that individuals 65 years of older, individuals 18 to 64 with high risk or severe infection, and individuals 18 through 64 who are at high risk because of their jobs, which is healthcare workers. I think 6 hours ago, the CDC actually met, and they then now have given their recommendation, which is individuals 65 years of age and older, individuals 50 through 64 years of age with any underlying condition, individuals 19 to 49 years of age with underlying conditions that they assess that there are risks for infection. They did not recommend a booster for those who are at high risk jobs for infection. So they did not recommend healthcare workers. They did not recommend teachers. They did not recommend grocery workers. So I know there's been some confusion, but actually that just came, I think they met about 4 to 6 hours ago, and I was able to get that updated information. We have received this morning from the state of California their COVID-19 vaccine action plan. So their action plan is again based on CDC, though they have not, I mean, all that information just came out 6 hours ago. Their action plan was from this morning, so they had not actually heard from the CDC. So what does that mean for Tahoe Forest Hospital and Incline? We actually have a plan in place. We have a plan in place for over 65. We have a plan in place for our staff. So once we hear from CDPH, we'll activate that plan. We're actually meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. But I just want you all to know we do have a plan in place. Our plan we thought actually the healthcare workers would get approved first, but they have not. So we'll kind of shift to our over 65 plan, and then those that are 50 to 65 that have a high risk, which is probably not as large of a population. So when we hear from CDPH, if we need to initiate that next week, we will. Any questions? Thank you.
Wow. We're almost, did someone have something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, for those of us who may or may not be over 65, but how would we go about getting a booster?
Who are over 65, we will, once we hear from CDPH, we will send out information via social media and my chart that we are ready. And what will happen, Director Brown, is you will go into My Turn and schedule yourself for a booster.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. And Mary, you're asking for someone else, right?
Yeah, just in case there's somebody over 65. I thought they.
We do anticipate at some point in the next month, within the month, that 12 and under may get approval. So we'll see what the FDA does with that information or that recommendation.
And do the people need to be 8 months from their second?
I did not read the 8 month or 6 month, so still waiting to get that decision.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Judy, thank you always for keeping us updated on what's happening with COVID. I know you, like you said, things change from moment to moment, and we're glad we have you as our resource.
You're welcome.
We didn't pull anything from our consent calendar. I don't think any of our board committees met this year or this month.
The foundation did meet.
Okay.
Super quick update there. There was really two conversations of note. One was actually a conversation that happened with Breck, the chairman of the board and leadership there. What surfaced from there went in to talk about sort of what's really important to the hospital, to the community, et cetera. The conversation was really dominated by what was labeled as steady feedback on the cost of care is too expensive, right? So we're starting to see that around the community as, why are things so expensive? Clearly, we've got a great response to that and very understandable reasons why, but the perception from the community is that, costs are really high. The second piece that we covered was funding of the new 3T MRI that's scheduled to be installed here over the next couple of years. Looking at $1 million donation or contribution, I should say, from the foundation to support that. 500,000 will be pulled from an areas of greatest need fund, which is currently available. The remainder would require additional funds raised of 500,000 through the next year. A vote on approving that was delayed into the next meeting. But overall, I would say there's really widespread support for moving in that direction. Just need to get some details on some of the logistics and timing before a vote could be completed. I think the overwhelming sense is that that technology would be incredibly valuable for the community. And that was it.
Okay.
Alice,
yes.
if I could, I am scheduled, as I do every month, to give a report to the Incline Hospital Foundation about the workings of our board. On October 11th, however, which would be the normal time, Judy, that I make that report to with the Incline Foundation board, I'm going to be in Utah and Colorado mountain biking. So I put a note into Carly Epstein and asked her if they still want to report, if one of you might step up and give that report on my behalf, I'd appreciate it. So Martina or Carly will get a hold of you to see if that's needed.
Okay. So Dale, are you going to ask to defer your report for another meeting, or did you want one of the other board members to represent?
Well, that's why I say I've asked that question of Carly, and I'll wait to hear back from her. If in fact she said a substitute would be preferred, that's fine. My suspicion, Harry, is that it could skip a month and nobody would miss it. But what's your thoughts?
And is it a Zoom meeting that you're on, or do you meet in person?
Yes,
it's a Zoom.
Okay.
So, it's always nice to have a board member speak. I try to stay away from most board matters. There will be curiosity because you guys are going to do some important board member fill work. You're going to be involved with first phase of strategic planning and so forth. So you'll have some things to share, but I can enhance mine, or they'd love to hear from another board member should you choose.
Yeah, all right. Well, let me hear what I hear from Carly in that regard.
Okay.
If in fact we do need a report, we're talking 5 minutes maximum. And I just refer to the previous agenda, board agenda, to develop a report to give them an idea of what's going on at the district level.
It's very similar, Alice, to what you do at MEC, and Michael, what you do for the Truckee Foundation.
Okay, well, let us know what Carly has to say, if you could defer it or if she wants it to be presented at this time, and we'll find someone to replace you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. So some other board reports. The one that I have is that we met with Moss Adams. Both Dale and I separately met with them, and it's a routine that we do, and it by policy. Members of the board, the chair, as well as the treasurer, and we go over some pretty standard questions about the budget and what we understand as board members, and if we see anything that's questionable, or if we have any questions on the process. So again, just to let all the board members know that it indeed is part of our responsibility to oversee the audits that are being done by Moss Adams. And this is our third year with them, and they've been so helpful.
Yes, I think third year.
Yeah, and they've been very open in discussing with us their process. They are willing to answer any questions that we might have. They give us some direction. And sometimes they go, "Oh, you're getting way too deep into it. Don't worry about that part, Alice." So again, a very informative meeting.
Yeah.
And then we do have that vacancy on the board that was created on August the 12th when Art King left the district. Public notices have been put out, and we've been accepting applications for the position. They've come in, the deadline was on Monday. So we have several applications to review for, someone's putting up their fingers. And we will be interviewing next week for these, for the position. And then that individual who's selected as the director will take the oath of office and be seated at our October meeting. So we'll have all 5 of us again.
Yeah.
And just talking about vacancies, I did want to tell you that on September the 2nd, Randy Hill, a former member of our board of directors, passed away peacefully with his son at his bedside. I had a special relationship with Randy because he and I both ran at the same time for our positions on the board. So we became not only colleagues, but friends, and he became one of my mentors, and I miss him greatly. But I didn't want to read to you a proclamation to honor Randy. Whereas Randy Hill founded Renee's Place, a program for children in bereavement, and whereas Randy Hill served as a board member and as the board president of the Tahoe Forest Hospital District Foundation, and whereas Randy Hill served as the foundation committee chair of the Tahoe Forest Hospital District Measure C, a ballot measure to greatly improve the delivery of healthcare services, meet state required seismic standards, modernize emergency and women and infant care facilities, and provide for a state-of-the-art cancer center. And whereas with the leadership of Randy Hill, Measure C passed with 73% of the electorate. And whereas Randy Hill served on the Tahoe Forest Hospital District Cancer Advisory Council and founded the Hob Day Spirit of Giving Award. And whereas Randy Hill served many years as a trustee for the Tahoe Truckee Unified School District, when retiring from the school board, he ran in 2016 as a candidate for the Tahoe Forest Hospital District Board of Directors and was elected. And whereas Randy Hill was serious, driven, always questioning, firm and yet often humorous in his untiring quest to best serve the hospital, its patients, staff, and the community. And now, therefore, be it resolved, the chair of the board of the directors of Tahoe Forest Hospital District hereby posthumously honors, appreciates, and recognized on our behalf of a grateful board, staff, and community, Randy Hill for all his achievements, service, and betterment of our community in which he lived. We're going to send a copy of this to his son, who I think is his only child.
Wow, that is lovely, Alice.
It's well done.
And thank Ted Owens, who did the draft, and I was able to edit it. So thank you again. So with those closing remarks, we'll adjourn our meeting. Thanks everybody for your time. I know it was a long meeting, but such a great organization to have accomplished so much during the pandemic. So thank you again, everybody.
Bye, Alice. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you, everyone. Good